This weekend, it was our turn to have a party. About once every month and a half, the six of us, three couples, usually got together at one of our houses. It was Anna's friend Sally and her husband Carl, our neighbor Jackie, and her current husband Trent. Sometimes there were others, but that was the core group. We were all in our early 20s and none of us had children. We couldn't. Sally and Carl didn't want anything. Trent had 2 kids from his first marriage, but they were living with his ex. He was desperate to get custody of them. There was food, drinks, and we usually had some sort of topic. Sometimes it was a trivial chase, cards, a sporting event on TV, and when we met at Trent's house, we swam in his pool, weather permitting. The girls, especially Sally and my Anna, organized these parties with a little bit of calling to make sure we could get a critical mass together for a certain date. Anna loved to chat and gossip on the phone and enjoyed organizing. She is a busty, lush woman with wavy, light brown hair. She's a bit of a flirt, and it pisses me off at times. She loves attention, but to my knowledge has never crossed any boundaries while we have been together. My family still lives in the coastal town in Oregon where I grew up. I graduated from a state university with a degree in finance and took tests to become a certified financial planner. I was a bit reserved, but I loved learning about money, markets, statistics, and the history of our economic system. My father sold insurance in our town, and his honest and solid reputation gave me credibility in our town's financial world. I was actually named after my father. His name was Joseph Washburn, and my name was JT. I started renting an office in his building. I worked hard setting up meetings with people and explaining my strategy for their money. I told them that in general, I wanted their money to grow steadily but conservatively. I was associated with a national company and got a lot of financial data from them. I also spent some time doing my own research. It was something I really enjoyed. The first year I was somewhat successful. My clients were making good solid profits and their portfolios were outperforming the market. I enjoyed sharing office space with my father, and many of his long-term clients became my clients. I tried to meet with my clients regularly, get to know them better, and extend personalized customer service. They enjoyed and appreciated the contact. As I began my second year, one thing became clear. There was not enough business in our town to make a good living. I had my own financial goals, and as an economics student, I realized that I could not support myself solely on business in this town. The weather was nice for our party, so we decided to eat outside. We had a big terrace with a barbecue and an outdoor kitchen. I asked Anna what she would like the theme of tonight's party to be. "Let's play a game," she said. "We'll play a fun and funny game that everyone will enjoy. Doesn't that sound good, JT?" she blurted out. There was a little competition to see who would have the most fun party. I just enjoyed the company, mostly the food and drinks. I admit that I do enjoy my wine, and there were a few times when I had an extra glass or two. "What kind of game?" "Don't worry, JT, I'll handle it. You just barbecue." I was perfectly fine with that. I started thinking about the group that was supposed to get together tonight. First up were Sally and Carl. Sally and Anna have been friends since middle school. Sally is a little overweight, but built proportionately. Sally has large breasts. I estimate them at 38. She likes to show them off with deep-cut tops. Anna does too, and sometimes I have to override her closet choices. Carl is a diesel mechanic and works at a big store in our town. He's a good-natured guy and doesn't mind when Sally flirts and shows off. He's a big guy, probably 6'3", 220 inches or so. I rather like him, but probably would never have chosen him as a friend without the connection between Anna and Sally. Jackie and Trent were neighbors, and I really can't remember how we became so close to them. Jackie has a simple face, but a prominent body. Not the lush softness of Anna, but rather a natural leanness. She's smart, and I find that out of the whole group, I have the most in common with her. Trent is a golfer. He is skinny and about 5 feet 9 inches tall. There is a certain arrogance in Trent's demeanor. It repulsed me at first, but I've learned to tolerate the guy. I'm not sure I trust him, but he's smart, funny, and energizing at these parties. Just then, I heard the doorbell ring. Guests were arriving. I decided to move my financial planning practice to the city. I joined a firm in the city, but also continued my practice in our coastal town. It was only a 2.5-hour drive between the two. My plan was to be there 1 week a month. That week, I stayed with my parents, met with clients and potential clients. Everything was going well so far. I was sharing a room with a guy I went to college with, Julian Lee. Julian was an IT specialist and worked for one of the big banks. Julian was a very creative person, and I was surprised that he chose this particular career path. We had a two-bedroom apartment in the trendy Maples neighborhood near downtown. I could walk to my office, and there were tons of restaurants, bars, and boutiques within walking distance. It was definitely a young, modern, and trendy neighborhood. It was in one of these bars that I met Anna. Anna worked at Luca's, a trendy restaurant and bar about 2 blocks from our apartment. I think it was the third time Julian and I had been there when I got to talking to Anna. To me, she looked like a Playboy bunny, sensual and beautiful. She always wore something that emphasized her breasts and cleavage. Anna was serving the bar, and we got to talking, and she asked me all sorts of questions about my life, my career, my goals, and so on. Honestly, I was a little surprised that she was paying so much attention to me. She was brilliant, and I was an unassuming financial planner. In high school, I had a steady girlfriend, Gail Benson. Gail was attractive, smart, and fun to be with. We tried to make it work during college, but it was too hard to do. I dated some girls during college, but I never had a steady girlfriend during those 4 years. The night we left, I almost asked Anna out. I even got the impression that she wanted to. I was just a little worried that she would say no, and then we'd have to find another bar. "Dude, she's hot," Julian said. "You like her, you should ask her out." "You think? And you better do it quick or someone will beat you to it." The next night, I went to Luca's alone and made a date with Anna for Sunday night. And so we met. I was a little intimidated. I had never been with such a beautiful girl, but she was showing that she liked me. It wasn't long before she gave me what I considered the ultimate sign: sex. Sex with Anna was unlike anything I had experienced in my life so far. I had had several different sexual partners, including my high school girlfriend, Gail. Sexually, you could say I was a student. Anna had her doctorate. We did everything we could. She was completely uninhibited. She taught me a lot. Some things she did with me, and a lot of things we did together. She has nice breasts, nice ass. She's not overweight, but she's not too tight. Soft, seductive, and totally feminine. From time to time, I wondered how she learned all these things. How experienced was she? I mean, I knew the answer. She was very experienced. But I avoided discussing sexual history. I was afraid it would be too painful. Any consternation I felt about it was more than offset by my sexual satisfaction. Everyone was sitting on our back porch. We had finished dinner and had about 2 drinks for the evening. I think I had my 3rd glass of red wine. I had a long discussion with Carl about how he was hoping to get a job as manager of the diesel shop where he worked. He told me that the owner was strictly religious and asked me if I thought it would be a good strategy to attend his church to get along well with him. I said that if he wasn't involved in religion, it might seem disingenuous. He said he would have to think about it. As we sat there talking lazily, Sally asked, "So, Anna, what are our plans for tonight?" "Well," Anna began, "keep an open mind, and this is just for fun. We're going to play Truth or Dare." I thought, oh no. But Carl, Sally, and Trent clapped and applauded, expressing their approval. I looked at Anna and she smiled, then quickly looked at Sally. Carl and Trent were grinning. Jackie had a half smile, and she was the only one beside me who didn't show much enthusiasm. It started off rather mildly with a hint of sexual innuendo, nothing too risque. "Who is your beloved movie star? How old were you? When did you lose your virginity, etc.?" And then it was Trent's turn to ask. He chose Anna, and she chose the challenge. "Anna, I suggest you take off either your shorts or your top." "Wait a minute," I said. "It's okay. I'm wearing underwear. It's like a swimsuit," said Anna. Anna loves attention, and there were times when her behavior was close to crossing the line. Whereas I liked the confident sexuality that I considered only my own, and I certainly didn't want others to experience even the slightest intimacy with Anna. She quickly removed her top and stood in her lacy white bra. The tops of her breasts quivered. She straightened up proudly, and Trent and Carl whistled. Sally giggled. "Come on, girl!" Anna loved the attention. I was a little angry, but kept my thoughts to myself. This went on without much trouble until Sally dared to show her fully exposed breasts. Unlike me, her husband Carl spurred her on. She flashed them, and they were definitely big, not my type, but big. Everyone laughed except Jackie and me. I said, "One more round and the end of this game?" A few chuckles and protests, but I was concerned that we might cross the line. It was Anna's turn, and she asked Trent. "Okay, go ahead," Trent challenged. "Show your buddy for 10 seconds, Anna challenged. "Don't you dare," Jackie replied. With those words, Trent stood up, unzipped, and threw off his shorts and boxers. Both Anna and Sally stared at me. I was shocked, and Carl laughed. He was spinning around a bit like a male stripper. When I looked at Anna, she was just staring at him. At that moment, Jackie said, "I'm leaving." She looked pissed off. She also told Trent that he could get in the car with his clothes on or walk home. Everyone dispersed, and the party was officially over. As we were getting cleaned up, Anna was uncharacteristically quiet. We were finishing up, and I said, "This has gone too far, don't you think?" "Oh, it was just for fun. Don't be such a stick in the mud," she replied jokingly. "Anna, people here were naked and almost naked, and you were one of them." "Naked," she said. "I'll show you naked." And she proceeded to undress. I was quickly and thoroughly distracted. I was still concerned about how the party was developing, and I was determined to discuss it seriously tomorrow. I should also say that I'm not the kind of guy who enjoys their wife exposing herself to other men. I went to sleep sexually satisfied, but a little anxious. Sunday morning, I got up first thing and went for a run. While running, I planned the discussion I planned to have with Anna. I was going to emphasize that I enjoy fun and a good party as much as anyone else, but my wife and our bodies were just for us. We made that vow the day we got married. I wasn't going to compromise one bit on that. When I got home, Anna was laughing on the phone. She must have heard me because the laughter had stopped and the volume had dropped considerably. I actually thought I heard the word undress clearly before she heard me. "Who was that?" "Oh, just Sally," she giggled. She and Carl had a great time and rated our party as the best so far. "About that, I think we should talk about some of the actions last night and in particular your behavior." Anna was good-natured for the most part, and it took a lot of effort to get her out of my mind. I managed to accomplish that with my comment. She told me about how it was innocent, it was just fun, no one else was upset, and nothing was wrong. I tried to calm her down, reassure her, and explain my feelings, but she wasn't interested. After she lashed out at me, there was silence. As I set to work in the yard, I tried to analyze my feelings. I really didn't think I was being unreasonable. I wanted to give her some freedom to be who she was. That's who I married. I enjoyed her free will, but anything intimate should be mine alone, including the sight of her body. I have to admit, I was a little insecure. Anna is a beautiful, sexy woman, and I'm a pretty basic financial planner. I know I'm not bad-looking and stay in good shape, but I also know that she gets hit on by all sorts of guys all the time. I have no real reason to doubt her fidelity, but before we got married, there were a few incidents that activated my radar. At that point, we had been dating for almost 3 months and had been having sex almost the entire time. I felt an affinity for Anna. We had a few good conversations, and I learned about her life. Her father had left home, leaving her mother and older sister behind. Anna craved male attention, and once her body began to develop, she got it. I didn't want to delve into her sexual history, but it occurred to me that by the time she was 16, her virginity was long gone. It sounded like she'd had boyfriends and casual friends she'd played around with, that's how she put it. No wonder she never had to look too hard to find the next one. She loved attention, and knew that with her looks, it wasn't hard to attract guys. We were invited to a casual acquaintances party the following Saturday night. At that point, we hadn't made our exclusivity official yet, but in my opinion, we were exceptional. She told me she loved me, and for me, love and exclusivity went hand in hand. It was December, and the party was a little more dressed up than usual. When I saw what Anna was wearing, my eyes nearly popped out of my orbits. It was a red dress that barely covered her breasts. "You like my dress?" she teased. "Anna, you look gorgeous, but wow, it's pretty skimpy," I replied. "You know I'm likely to have clients there, and, well, it's a little overkill." Well, Anna doesn't get mad often, but when she does, it's almost always because of the way she looks. She got angry. She said I thought she was trashy. She said I thought she was going to embarrass me, and so on and so forth. It took a while, I apologized, and even though it was a little frosty, we went to the party and she wore that dress. The house was big up in the hills, beautiful decorations, lots of food and drink. Some of my co-workers from work were there, people I knew from college, and others I knew from the sports club I belonged to. There was one guy at the party that I remembered from college, someone named McAllister, one of those arrogant, good-looking jerks, confident with an ingratiating smile on his face and black hair slicked back. He was walking around with that cocky smile and a glass of champagne. Then he saw Anna. Anna was getting a lot of attention, mostly male attention, and most of it was centered on her cleavage. She was next to me, and suddenly I was popular with co-workers and casual acquaintances. At one point I went to get a drink, and when I came back, McAllister was chatting with Anna. He was acting as if I didn't exist. She loved it, all this attention. And now this cute guy was acting like everything she was saying was the most interesting thing he'd ever heard. I managed to steal her away, but as parties go, you end up drifting one way or the other. And Anna and I broke up. I talked to some co-workers and they shared some business ideas that were quite helpful. I realized that it had been over an hour since I had last seen Anna. I cast a quick glance around the living room, the kitchen, and the family room next to the kitchen. Nothing. I didn't want to seem flustered, but I had a need to find her. I didn't see McAllister either. There was a group of people smoking outside, and I stepped out into the winter air. No Anna. I was on my way back when I heard her laughter coming from the street. I was walking down the sidewalk. She and McAllister were walking down the street. It took her a moment to see me, and while I watched her and McAllister, they seemed to enjoy each other's company. "Oh, hey, honey, Jim was just showing me his new BMW," she said. "She's a marvel," McAllister said. "I mean the car," he laughed. I looked at Anna. I didn't see anything special. She just seemed a little wrinkled. I had a fake smile on my face. Inside me, everything was boiling. Anna came over and hugged me as they approached. "I'm leaving now," I said. "Just wanted to make sure you wanted a ride home." "Of course I want a ride home," she said. "Why not?" She looked at me questioningly. At that moment, McAllister clapped me on the back. "It's good to see you again," and held out his hand. Now, I'm not a bodybuilder, but I do work out, and I've always had a strong grip. That, and the combination of my anger at Anna and this asshole's insolence, resulted in me grabbing his hand hard. He didn't stand a chance, and by the time he realized what was happening, I was already squeezing his hand. His knees buckled, and his mouth was open in a wordless scream. "Honey, you're hurt, Jim!" Anna cried. "Oh, I'm sorry, it's my fault," I said, and headed for the car without looking back. By the time I got to my car and buckled up, she had caught up with me. This was our first big fight. I usually really liked her. She looked great, and the sex was above reproach, or at least above anything I'd ever heard of. I knew she was an attention seeker and judged her worth by the attention she received from men. We hadn't formalized anything at this point. However, to me, a steady sexual relationship where we saw each other more than a few times a week and talked about love is the adult version of constant communication, but we never had that specific discussion. I dropped her off and she looked at me questioningly when I told her I was staying at my place tonight. "Oh, honey, don't. Nothing happened to Jim. We were just having fun." "Well, I think that's just enough for me for one night. I'll see you later." And I left. She called and texted, and I ignored her. Life went on for me, and I spent a week focusing on my work. The next week, I decided to leave on Saturday morning instead of my usual Sunday night. I called my mom, and she was thrilled to have me over for the weekend. I had a good week in my hometown. I had several good client meetings. Professionally, my steady business on the coast and my growing business in the city were making me successful. I was meeting my financial goals, and I was getting noticed by my organization. A week ago, I would have had to say that my personal life was also progressing in the right direction. Now I couldn't say that anymore. She kept writing and calling, and my responses were minimal. She asked when I would be back, and I told her Friday night. No sooner had I entered my house than the doorbell rang. I opened it to Anna. She was wearing a raincoat with a wrapped gift. "This is for you," she said, and held out the gift to me. I opened it, and in the box was a key, an old-fashioned skeleton-type key. "You have the key to my heart," she said. I stared at her with mixed feelings. With those words, she unbuttoned her cloak, and before me stood Miss September, or, for that matter, any other Playboy character from my teenage fantasies. Whatever determination I had melted away in a wave of lust. Then I questioned her about everything that happened at the party with McAllister. I know I shouldn't have gone out with Jim, but he was so sweet. So what happened? Nothing. He tried to mess around a bit, but that's how I've been treating guys since I was 14. We talked, and I told her I might be jealous. I went on to say that if she wasn't ready to be my date, I would be sad. But I would understand. I said that I'm not the type to fool around. I'm either in a casual relationship or committed. To me, what we had, I explained, was not a casual relationship. She laid on top of me and told me she was committed too. She also said she loved me and wanted to be with me forever. She then proceeded to have me until I was senseless. As I may have said, Anna holds no grudges, and the week after the Truth or Dare party went on as usual. She was a sexy, loving woman, the kind of woman I grew to love. I kept watching, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. At least she was more attentive to me and seemed to be less social with Sally, at least when I was around. One Saturday I was working in my yard and Trent happened to walk by, not that unusual. He and Jackie only live a few blocks away. He stopped and we started a pretty long conversation about lawns, fertilizer, and gardening. I asked if he wanted something to drink and we settled in the backyard to continue the conversation. Now, this may seem normal to an outsider, but Trent and I weren't all that friendly. A little cocky, just not my type. Like I said, we were connected through mutual friends. We got into a pretty long conversation, most of which centered around his kids and ex-wife. Apparently, they were fighting for custody, and she won. The custody document had morals spelled out in it, and he had heard of her potentially breaking some sort of spelled-out rules. He felt this was exactly what he needed to try to get custody of his children. His attachment to his children made him seem a little more vulnerable, which was nice. Maybe I'm wrong about Trent. Maybe he's okay after all. Suddenly, he asked where Anna was. We had a pretty heavy conversation about his family, and now he's asking about Anna. I told him she was shopping, and we immediately started talking about his custody situation. 15 minutes later, Anna shows up in a tiny bikini and bustles behind a screen at the south end of the backyard, saying hello to Trent. She likes to sunbathe in minimalist clothing, and we have a curious, retired neighbor named Henry Anderson. Anderson is a nice guy, the kind of guy who watches your house when you're away and reports on everything that's going on in the neighborhood. In other words, good and reliable, just a little nosy. He's a client of mine, too. That's why I put up the screen door. Meanwhile, Trent was stumbling as hard as he could to catch a glimpse of Anna. I led him back toward the exit, ending our conversation. As we passed through the gate, he called out, "Need any help with the suntan lotion, Anna?" And that was it. It made me think of another incident. After that incident with McAllister, things got better. In fact, things were great. I remembered the incident from time to time, but I had no reason to dwell on it. After that, our relationship entered a new phase. I guess I was partly justifying Anna's behavior by thinking that we were not committed to each other at that moment. At least that commitment had not yet been announced. Now we were committed to each other. Anna was loving and affectionate and really fun to be with. Did I have discussions as deep as I had with my other girlfriends? Honestly, probably not. But we had fun, and sexually she was up for anything. What's more, she was beautiful. I was proud to be with her. When I was with her in public, it felt good to be around her. She started unobtrusively asking about our future and where we were headed in the long run. I've been thinking about this myself. I'll make an analogy. I've always imagined myself driving a Camry, and suddenly I'm in a Porsche. I had this mental tug of war. One part of my brain was saying, she might not be the perfect match for me. All this fun is temporary, but not for long. The other side was saying, you're crazy. Every man's dream is to marry a goddess. What's your problem? I think the argument that broke the camel's back was this. If I broke up with Anna, would any other woman physically or sexually be able to match her? So far in my life, no one had even come close. Plus, I loved breasts, and hers were amazing. I proposed, and in addition to the ring, I also surprised her with tickets to a vacation in the Caribbean. Anna was thrilled. She really liked the ring, and the trip was only a few weeks away. Anna called her mom in California to let her know, and she also called and had a long talk with Sally. I called my parents and told them, and they seemed happy for me, but a little hesitant. "Are you sure about this?" Dad said. "Sure, why the question?" "Well, it's a big step. Anna is a wonderful girl. I'm very happy for you," he replied. And I thanked him, but thought later that there seemed to be some hesitation in his enthusiasm. The resort was amazing. There was a pool, lots of bars and restaurants on site, and its own private beach with sun loungers and umbrellas. They also had a beach sports hut where you could rent kayaks, water skis, and other water activities. Once we got there, we changed into our swimsuits for a walk on the beach. Anna had 3 kinds of bikinis, hot, tight, and micro. I told her the micro was just for me. "We'll see," she giggled. We grabbed drinks from the beach bar and walked along this beautiful crescent of white sand fringing the clear blue water. Anna was in a hot bikini with a sheer white cover-up covering almost nothing. Men and women looked at her, and I was proud to be with her. We headed back and had a casual dinner at the pool bar, 2 more strong rum drinks, and we headed to our room. From our balcony, we watched the sunset, both of us a little tipsy. She stood leaning against the railing, bent at the waist. I walked up behind her and stroked her shoulders. My hands reached for those beautiful breasts. She purred with lust. It was all the encouragement I needed. It was already getting dark, but anyone could see us if they looked in our direction. The staff at the resort was very alert. There was always someone there to take towels, give directions, see if we needed food or drink, and then there were the beach boys. They were young men in their early 20s who patrolled the lounge chairs on the beach. They probably worked mostly for tips. Their main customers were women over 40 who enjoyed the attention of the young people. They brought drinks, towels, moved chairs or umbrellas, and, if asked, applied suntan lotion. Naturally, they were attracted to Anna in a bikini. So far, she had moved on to her revealing bikini. She looked very sexy. One of the beach boys, Cruz, seemed to always be hanging around. He had smooth, golden skin, a lean build, and a radiant, white-toothed smile. One day we were walking along the beach, and I asked Anna if she wanted to go jet skiing. "You go without me. I'm going to work on my tan," she said. "I'm scheduled for an hour-long workout on the jet ski." "Have fun and be safe." It was pretty fun racing around the ocean on the jet ski. It took just under an hour, and I was back on the beach. As I walked back to the lounge chairs, I saw Cruz looming over Anna. As I approached, he was massaging her naked back. He was definitely making contact with the side of her breasts. "What's going on here?" Cruz stood up quickly. "Mr. JT, I don't want Miss Anna to get a sunburn. She needs sunscreen on her back," he muttered. "I can take care of that myself, thank you." And he hurried away. "Anna, what the hell is this all about?" I asked her quietly but firmly. I didn't want to make a scene on the beach, but the beach boy was clearly groping her. "What are you talking about?" "Your top is unbuttoned. You have about 3/4 of an inch of material on your butt, and this teenager had free access to your body is what I'm talking about." "Did he feel your breasts?" "Oh, honey, chill out. He may have touched the sides a little, but my bust is just for you." I guess I pushed aside my overly flirtatious behavior with Cruz and shifted my thoughts to getting her laid as soon as possible. I suggested we have a siesta. She knew what I really wanted. Paradise had to end eventually, and we discussed wedding plans on the way home. Anna dozed off on the flight, and I reflected on what a wonderful trip it had been. The only thought that wouldn't go away in any way was of the Latino beach boy groping her breasts. After the weekend when Trent stopped by to visit, life went on. Work for me was stressful and rewarding. The money I was making wasn't bad. I had done most of my own research, and my money seemed to be multiplying nicely. Anna still worked at Luca's bar, but usually worked lunch shifts as a waitress. This allowed us to spend most of our evenings together. Anna didn't really have to work, but she liked it, and I think she liked having her own money. As the summer began, Anna and Sally started talking about the couple's next reunion. After the Truth or Dare party at our house, I was hoping that maybe these parties would start to die down. After much talking and planning, it was decided that the next party would be at Trent and Jackie's house, and it was scheduled for mid-July, a few weeks from now. Weather permitting, it was to be a pool party. When I heard this, I immediately told Anna, "No bikinis from the Caribbean. I can wear red." "Absolutely not. No way. It's one thing for strangers to see you like that, but not our friends." She didn't say anything more on the subject, and in my opinion, the matter was settled. The Tuesday before the party, I got a desperate phone call from my mom. My father had had a heart attack. He was in the county hospital, and they were going to do bypass surgery. I told my mom I would be there as soon as possible. I called Anna and told her what was going on. I swung by the house, grabbed an overnight bag for both of us, and we headed over to my parents' house. I had to keep myself from speeding up on the way to the hospital. Anna took my hand to reassure me. I was worried about my dad as well as my mom. My dad was a reliable force in our family, and my mom really needed his strength. Given that his health was in question, I worried how she would hold up. By the time we got to the hospital and found my mom, things had improved dramatically. My dad had a mild heart attack. The bypass surgery was successful, and his prognosis for a full recovery was very positive. They wanted to keep my dad in the hospital until Thursday and then let him go home. I stayed with him in the hospital Tuesday night, and Mom and Anna went back to the house to rest. Wednesday, they came back in the morning. My dad was really in a good mood, and when Mom and Anna arrived, he was lying in bed doing a crossword puzzle. We stuck there all day Wednesday, and it was pretty boring. Anna was polite, but I knew she didn't want to be stuck in the hospital for long. I didn't really blame her. The hospital is a pretty depressing place. After we brought Daddy home on Thursday, I told her I needed to stay, but why didn't she drive home? She could take my car and either come back for me over the weekend, or I could take Dad's car. He wasn't going to drive for a while. "No, I'll stay with you," she said. "Thanks, Anna, I appreciate it, but you go home. I want them to get settled, and I just need to be with them for a few days." She reluctantly agreed and left Thursday afternoon. I spent most of my Thursday afternoon getting my dad settled, running to the grocery store and just helping my mom as much as I could. I also spent time with my dad, and we watched a few baseball games on TV. Boring, yes, but I was glad to be with my parents. On Friday, I called Anna, and she asked me when I was going to be home. I told her at least not until Sunday. "What about the party? I totally forgot about the stupid party. I'm sorry, honey, I have to be here with my parents. Are you gonna go?" "I don't know. Sally wants me to go, and I think Jackie's sister and her boyfriend are coming too." I didn't fully trust Trent, but knowing that there would be newbies in the group, I was a little less worried about things getting overly racy like the last party at our house. "Okay, let me know what you decide to do. I'll call you tomorrow." On Saturday, my dad was a little depressed. I think he overdid it on Friday and was tired. I hung out with him, and when he fell asleep, I fixed some things around the house to help my mom. Mom made me stop and eat dinner. Dad was asleep by this time. The next step was to move all the stuff downstairs and put it on shelves for storage. When I have a project, I focus on it. Suddenly, I looked at my phone and saw that it was almost 10 o'clock. I needed to call Anna. "Hey, what's going on?" I heard some noise in the background. "Oh, hey, honey, I'm at Trent and Jackie's. We're having a good time. Daddy's doing good," and just then I heard a high-pitched scream, and Anna started giggling. "What's going on?" "What, honey?" She started laughing. "How much have you had to drink?" Honey, the connection isn't very good. Can I call you back?" And then another background laugh. Suddenly, I distinctly heard Trent say, "Take that top off, too," and then another explosion of laughter, some muffled chatter. "Oh, this is getting even hotter." I thought it was Anna who said that. What the hell is going on? Somehow her phone had gone off, but clearly they weren't playing Trivial Pursuit. If I went now, it would be past midnight. At this point, I was exhausted and didn't want to risk going home tonight. At the same time, I really needed to know what was going on. Suddenly, an idea popped into my head. Henry Anderson. Since he was in my contacts, I called Henry. I explained that I needed some pictures of what was going on at Trent and Jackie's place. He was ready. I told him where they lived and described where to position myself to photograph their backyard. He said he would get there right away. I finished, turned my phone off, and went to bed. If something bad was going on at Trent's, I didn't want to relive it tonight. I was physically and emotionally exhausted from worrying about my dad. I slept hard and long. The next morning, I turned on my phone. Anderson had sent some pictures. They were worse than I had imagined. Photo 1. Anna is completely naked and Trent is stalking her. Photo 2. A naked and horny Carl grabs Anna's breasts. Photo 3. Anna and Sally, both naked, ass to ass, dancing for Trent and Carl. Photo 4. Trent has Anna, and Carl gets in line. I didn't need to see anything else. This was irrefutable proof of Anna's infidelity. I had seen the warning signs before, but I didn't believe she would cross that line. It was unforgivable. A black fog clouded my brain. I was just numb, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I told my mom I was going for a walk. "Everything okay, JT?" "Yeah, everything's fine." I didn't want to take this whole mess out on her because of Dad's health issues. I was walking and thinking. I cried and thought. I planned and thought. It was several hours before I got home. I was deeply saddened but determined to end this marriage, minimize my financial loss, and pay back those two jerks, Trent and Carl. First, I had to get the whole story straight, and I didn't want Anna to know what I knew. Anna called around noon and was particularly affectionate on the phone. "I miss you like your daddy does when you come home. I really miss you, and I need you." I almost accused the bitch of screwing everyone at the party, but kept my mouth shut. I was going to figure out how to screw her over. I just needed to make a plan. I wanted to protect myself and my assets. I knew I had to act normal around Anna. I told her that my dad was getting worse and I needed to stay another week. Dad was actually fine and progressing ahead of schedule. I told her I would call her and that it would be better if she didn't come. It was hard for Dad to take the excitement. I actually left Monday night for the city. I called my old roommate Julian to see if I could stay with him for a few days. He seemed surprised, but agreed. When I got to Julian, he said his brother was arriving from New York on Thursday. His brother was an actor, and the play he was in had closed, and he was going to consider alternative career options. I explained to Julian what had happened and showed him the pictures. He was surprised. He knew Anna was flirty, but he didn't think she would cheat on me. I told him how upset I was and how I wanted to somehow get even with Anna and that whole group. I also told him that I needed to keep what I knew from Anna until I had a plan. He agreed not to say a word. The next day I waited outside Carl's work. Carl was a diesel mechanic, and he told me that there was an opening for a supervisor position coming up, and he was desperate for a promotion. I saw him walking to his truck, waved, and said, "Carl, let's get a beer." He was surprised to see me, but Carl didn't turn down beer very often. There was a place on the corner, and we went in. It was a sort of tavern for laborers, and it was sparsely populated. After we ordered our beers, I asked him what happened Saturday night. "Just another typical party," Carl replied. "Is this typical?" And I showed him one of the pictures. "Hey, man, what were we supposed to do? The girls got naked. It didn't mean anything." "Okay, I realize there's nothing special about it. Oh, by the way, what do you think your boss would say about it not being a big deal?" I knew his boss was very religious, and Carl was really hoping for a promotion. He stood up, and I stood up. He shoved me threateningly. I turned around and hit Carl. It was like hitting a softball. It was perfect. He immediately went down. There wasn't an ounce of fight left in him. I've always noticed that the minute you stand up to a bully, he becomes a coward. Carl was finished. I helped him up. It happened so fast, no one in the bar even noticed. And even if they did, they didn't care. He started apologizing and blaming the others. I told him to shut up and listen. I had some questions. I also told him that if he didn't want his boss to get the pictures, he should tell me the truth to all my questions and not let Anna, Sally, or anyone else hear that I knew what was going on. He agreed. He seemed desperate to keep the pictures from his boss. We sat for over an hour, and I learned a lot about Anna. Everything he said was believable and made twisted sense. Anna, Sally, and Carl all went to high school together. It was one of a socio-economic cross-section of kids. There were the rich, the middle class, and the lower middle class. The group that Anna and Sally were in was of the poorer kids. Around the time the girls hit puberty, they also realized the difference in their clothes, their houses, and their parents' cars. The wealthier children ridiculed them for the old-fashioned clothes and old cars their families had. The great equalizer for the girls was their bodies. Anna was gorgeous, and although Sally was a little overweight, She had very large breasts. The girls had become popular. Carl was pretty sure they had both lost their virginity by the time they turned 15. Later, in high school, Sally told him that she and Anna had a conversation. It went something like this. Anna told Sally that all she wanted was to have nice clothes, nice cars, and a nice house. She liked sex, so she didn't mind trading sex for material goods. She said she was going to find a man who could provide that. The richer, the better. Carl also told me that at the time Anna and I started dating, she had a boyfriend. She told Sally that she thought my prospects were better. After she started dating me, she continued to see him for almost 3 months before they broke up. You mean she slept with me and her old boyfriend for 3 months? Hell, he said. Since you two got married, I know at least 2 other guys she slept with, and that's besides me and Trent. Who? I don't know all the details, but I know one of them was some cute dude named McCallum or something. She said you knew him. Must have been that asshole McAllister we saw at that party before we got married. I just sat there, seething with anger. It didn't seem to bother Carl, he just kept drinking his beer. There was no doubt in my mind that I couldn't stay married to her. I needed a plan. So you're telling me that if someone with more money, a better car, and a better house came along, Anna would have rushed to him? I'm sure she would. After a few minutes of sitting and thinking, I asked him about Saturday night. What happened to Jackie? Was she involved? I hadn't seen her in any pictures. Turns out her sister's boyfriend was an asshole and left. Jackie's sister was upset, so Jackie took her home and stayed with her. This opened up the holiday to the rest of the party. So Jackie doesn't know what happened? No, and don't tell her, he replied. Well, don't you care if your wife sleeps with other guys? Wife! We're not married. She always calls me her husband. We've been together a long time. No, when I get married, it's not going to be someone like Sally. She's a great girl, and I kind of love her, but I'm not marrying her. That's why we don't have kids. It was time to leave. I had a lot to think about. Here are the key facts. 1. Anna was more than promiscuous. 2. The main reason she was with me was financial security, and she would leave if a better prospect came along. 3. No one but Carl knows what I know, and for now, that's the way it's going to be. 4. Even an idiot like Carl was smarter than me when it comes to women. I went back to Julian and told him everything I had heard from Carl. I was sad, but the sadness gave way to anger. Yeah, and I was also embarrassed. I wonder how many of them were laughing at me behind my back. I had to make her, and probably a few more, pay. Julian asked a few questions, then plugged in his headphones and started working on his laptop. I sat there drinking a bottle of red wine and getting angrier and angrier. Julian disconnected and asked, She never met John Paul, did she? No, even I haven't seen him since we were in college. Why do you ask? He just shook his head and reconnected. Would you be able to get your hands on about $30,000? Yes, but why? I also need you to lease a BMW for 6 months if this all works out. He kept typing with a sly smile on his face. Finally, he said he had a plan. It was going to cost me at least $30,000 and the lease on the BMW. He told me to go to Anna's house tomorrow and do the best acting job of my life. I have to pretend everything is fine. I have to go back to Julian's on Thursday after work. John Paul will be here then. The next day, I called Anna and told her I would be home tonight. I did my best to act normal. Every time she asked if anything was wrong, I just told her I was worried about my dad. Fortunately, either I was a better actor than I realized myself, or more likely, she just didn't pay much attention to me. Thursday night, I met Julian and John Paul at Julian's apartment. After exchanging pleasantries, Julian laid out his plan. John Paul will seduce Anna by posing as a New York investment banker. He must reluctantly reveal how rich he is and then make her fall in love with him and his money. John Paul was in a play that would begin in about 5 months, so he had to pull it all off in that time. John Paul was 2 years younger than Julian and was an attractive guy. Long hair, lean build, and a naturally attractive smile. She was bound to like him. I gotta ask you one thing, man, he said. Do you mind if I sleep with her? I mean, she's your wife. I told him I don't care, and there's no way they won't have sex for 5 months. Rather, they'll hook up in 5 days. I gave them her bar schedule and told them it would be better if we met weekly. I didn't want to get caught, and not only did John Paul have to play his part, but I had to act like a devoted, clueless husband. The week went by without any incidents or mistakes on my part. I tried to notice any changes in Anna. Yes, we had sex. Living with Anna, sex was just a normal part of our lives. The good news is that making love with Anna was not a slow, romantic act. It was almost a physical competition, certainly satisfying, but also exhausting. Thursday night, we met at Julian's apartment. I was interested to hear the report. My overwhelming desire was to get her into John Paul, but a small part of me hoped she wouldn't do it after all. John Paul had been to the bar 3 times. The first time, he just wanted her to notice him. Second time, light conversation and jokes. The third time, they met. She told me she's working tomorrow from 11 to 3. I'm going to show up at 2 for a late lunch and coffee with her. I had to buy a $1,200 suit to play my part. The next week went on. Work, home. I couldn't help but wonder what was going on with Anna and John Paul. One day I noticed she was home late at night. I wondered what that meant. It was like waiting for the next episode of your favorite weekly TV show. I couldn't wait to hear the latest report Thursday night. Here's what John Paul reported. They had coffee on Friday. Anna admitted she was married, but hinted there were problems and seemed available. She said she wasn't working on Tuesday and agreed to meet him for lunch. John Paul hinted that he was rich and took his time to give little hints. Life with Anna continued, but I began to notice a chill emanating from her. Good. Tuesday, I got home a little after 5 and Anna wasn't home. I went for a run, and when I got back, Anna was gone. When I was making a salad for dinner, she came home. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" This is going to be interesting, I thought. "Oh, yeah, I worked late," she replied. I knew she wasn't working, but that was good. "Have you been busy?" She told some made-up story about her job. I could feel us drifting away from each other. The sex was still good. In retrospect, sex for us was mostly physical, without much emotion, so it wasn't hard to fake it. I was going to make it easy for her. I told her that my dad needed help, and I would have to leave Friday afternoon. She made a hesitant attempt to ask if she should go too. I told her that was fine. I was just going to help out a little and then stay the next week and meet with clients. Thursday night, I found out that John Paul had progressed. Lunch on Tuesday turned into a kissing session. He called her on Wednesday, after she found out I would be out of town, and they made plans for Friday night. I felt like a puppeteer pulling strings behind the scenes to get the puppet to move in the direction I wanted. It was working. As the weeks went by, their relationship progressed. The sex between Anna and John Paul happened the weekend I was at my parents' house. No surprise there. Our relationship at home was changing. She was growing distant. It was a bit bittersweet. Every once in a while, I would see flashes of the soulful woman I once loved, and it was sad. After about 3 months, John Paul started swearing his love to Anna and asking her to be with him. By this time, Anna believed that John Paul was a wealthy New York investment banker with an expensive apartment in Manhattan. When he asked her about her husband, Anna said almost nothing, except that the relationship was over and that she had moved on. She just hadn't talked to her husband about it yet. A few weeks later, Anna told me that she and Sally were going to a spa in California for the weekend, and was that okay? I was well aware that John Paul had invited her to go to Sun Valley for the weekend. "Sure, you'll probably love it," I told her. That night, I was rewarded with great sex. I knew John Paul was going to propose at a resort in Idaho. The cubic zirconia engagement ring cost almost $500. Cubic zirconia is said to be almost indistinguishable from a natural diamond. Moreover, assuming John Paul was rich, there was no reason to be suspicious. The following Thursday night, I received a report of a romantic trip to Sun Valley. He proposed to her, and she accepted. She told John Paul that she had to break up with her husband. He wanted to get married soon. He told her he had to be back in New York in 2 months, which was true, and he needed her to be with him. That part wasn't true. Anna told John Paul that she would talk to her husband this week and let him know about the divorce. My plan was to fight her and act like I didn't want her to leave. The plan was to negotiate that I keep all of my assets in the immediate divorce. It worked perfectly. When Anna told me she was leaving, I was shocked and saddened. And of course, I was angry. "We're married. I won't let you leave. I'm not going to let you get a divorce. I will require many months of counseling. We will work it out," I proclaimed. I really excelled at acting. When she met John Paul at the luxury condominium he was renting with my money, she said I wouldn't let her go that easily. "Anna, my love," John Paul said, "I have all the money we'll ever need. I have an apartment in the city, and I'm looking for a beach house on Long Island. All I need to make my life perfect is you as my wife." You can imagine the dollar signs spinning in her brain. "Here's what we'll offer your husband," he continued. "I'll have my attorney draw up a document in which he will keep all of his assets. In return, he'll agree to an immediate divorce." She was all for it. When she got home, I was either angry with her or begging her to stay with me. I kept telling her that I would require several months of counseling before she would leave. I knew she wanted to leave soon so she could be with a millionaire. Friday night, she came home with a divorce document. It gave her an immediate divorce while relinquishing any rights to my assets, our home, my car, and all my investments. I gave the performance of my life. I yelled, whined, told her I would never let her go. Then I told her I needed to be alone in the basement. While she thought I was sad and depressed, I watched a baseball game. Finally, with eyes full of tears, I had stashed some Vicine, I dutifully walked out with the signed document. She had the decency not to celebrate in front of me. As she walked away, I couldn't help but notice her triumphant gait. It was mid-September at this point. We were to be officially divorced on October 5th. She had waived any rights to my assets and was going to move to New York, where they would be married by the end of October. We met that Thursday at Julian's to plan the final act. Here's how the plan was laid out. Anna would stay in a rented apartment for the next 2 weeks. On Friday, when they left, she would return to our house and pick up her clothes and furniture. John Paul told Anna that he would meet her at the house at noon in a truck. Then they would take her things to the trucking company and ship them to his home in New York. Of course, by the time Anna is waiting with her things, John Paul will be gone. John Paul tells her that his last name is Taylor. She'll have a hard time ever tracking him down, and quite expensive. She just didn't have the money. "You're a pretty violent man," John Paul told me. "I disagree," I said. "It's nowhere near as cruel as she treated me." "I understand. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I'm really going to miss that piece of ass. She was about as good as it gets." "Yeah, I'm going to miss it too," I sighed. My interactions with Anna were polite. I had to feign contrition a few times. I didn't ask her to change her mind and stay with me. I was afraid she might agree. That Friday, I met her at home as she was packing her things. I almost thought about trying to sleep with her one last time, but decided I was done. She was dressed like she was going somewhere special. She thought she was. By 12:30, she made her first phone call to John Paul, but the number was closed. She asked if she could use my phone. Same result. She called the luxury condo, and they said it was paid for until Saturday, and after that, it would be rented again. She asked me if I could leave her stuff while she went back to the condo to see what was taking John Paul so long. I didn't communicate with her for the rest of the weekend. It was time for phase 2 of the plan. I sent 3 packages with a collection of pictures from the sex party they had thrown while I was with my dad. In all of the photos, Trent, Sally, Carl, and Anna's faces, and bodies for that matter, were easily identifiable. Package 1 went to Carl's deeply religious boss. Attached to the photos was a note that said, "I believe that a person's moral character reflects on the quality of the work they do. Do you?" Package 2 went to Trent's ex-wife. The note attached to this photo said, "Look at what your ex is doing. Thank God the kids are with you." Package 3 went to Jackie. The note read, "I think you and I missed the funniest part of the party. I'm sorry to break the news to you, but you deserve to know." And he added, "Once things calm down, would you like something to drink?" I signed all the notes with my name and phone number. I had one more piece of unfinished business, and that was McAllister. Maybe I'll ask Julian to come up with something for him, too. Epilogue. Of course, Anna tried to rekindle our relationship. Not a chance in hell of that happening. She showed up the following Monday night looking like she had just gotten home from work. "Hi, honey. Sorry about our little misunderstanding. I'm home for good." I just stared at her. "Anna, you ruined my life," I yelled. "This isn't your home. You're running away with someone to New York." "No, I changed my mind. I want to stay with you." "No more game." "Forget it. Get the hell out of here and never come back," I stated coldly. At this point, she had resorted to her old tricks, already taking off her top and unhooking her bra. I had fallen for this tactic too many times to give in now. Closing the door in her face, I said, "Say hi to John Paul for me." I looked out the window. She was standing with an absent expression on her face, displaying her beautiful breasts for all to see. Frowning her eyebrows, she was trying to piece together the meaning of my reference to John Paul. In all our discussions, his name had always been kept secret. Sure enough, Henry Anderson hung over the fence and glared at her. Last I heard, she was living with Sully. I'm sure she's already on the lookout. Carl not only didn't get a promotion, I heard he was fired. He left town, leaving Sally behind. Trent was a whole other matter. When he went to his custody hearing, he was soundly and firmly denied, and in fact the court increased his child support and limited his visitation rights. Obviously, photographs played a big part in this decision. One Saturday night, I received a desperate phone call from Jackie informing me that Trent was coming over to my house. He was drunk and had a gun. Apparently, he had found where the messages were coming from. I quickly snuck into the backyard, grabbed some blankets and pillows, and created a fake body under the blankets as if I were reading outside in a chaise lounge. I left a small light on to get his attention. I was armed with a baseball bat and hid in the thick bushes. Even if Jackie hadn't called, I would have heard him coming. He knocked on the front door and, when I didn't answer, walked through the wicket into the backyard. He immediately spotted the chaise lounge set up. He crept up and shot the blankets twice. The first blow must have broken his arm. I wanted to neutralize the weapon first. The next two were to his crotch. I wanted to neutralize that particular weapon too. Then I called the police. With the weapon and the shots fired, there was no need for a special investigation. I was defending myself, and Trent was charged with attempted murder. I called and thanked Jackie for the warning. "You're welcome," she said. "Now, didn't you say you wanted something to drink?"